What happens when soldiers, raised to believe surrender is a fate worse than death, are captured by an enemy who offers them a baseball game? Picture the last, desperate days of Saipan. Caves, smoke, and men trained for one glorious final charge. Now imagine one of them, Private Satoshi Kameda, huddled in a lightless tunnel, rifle useless at his feet, expecting torture or execution, and instead being handed a canteen, a blanket, and an invitation to play on a dusty diamond. That contradiction, honor taught as death, mercy given as sport, that's the question this story chases. It's not just about survival. It's about what happens to a warrior's soul when kindness breaks the rules he lived by. Trapped in a lightless cave, Private Satoshi Kameda rocks slowly against cold stone, the useless rifle clutched like a talisman he no longer believes in. No food, no water, no ammunition. Silence presses in. He's been schooled for one last act, an orchestrated, glorious suicide charge for the Emperor, told again and again that death is honor and survival is shame. Memory and ritual blur. He can feel the old commands tighten around his throat. He waits for the shout that will never come, eyes fixed on the tunnel mouth, expecting bayonets and fire, because in his world there is nothing between him and death. They expected teeth and bayonets, a last righteous thrust, but the lightless cave opens to a different image. An American soldier kneels, not with a rifle leveled, but with a dented canteen cupped in both hands and offered like a small, impossible piece. Kameda freezes, throat raw from salt and fear. He has been schooled to see mercy as a trick, surrender as a stain. Yet water, cool, clear, offered freely, slides into his hands and into his skull, undoing certainties he'd carried like armor. Reality splinters. Everything taught to him about enemies and punishment begins to wobble on its axis. Every lesson he'd been fed since boyhood screamed at him, capture meant torture, dishonor, death. And yet here, in a low-lit shelter, the opposite happens. An American medic kneels, slow and careful, cleans Kameda's cuts, presses a cool cloth to his brow, murmuring in halting Japanese between clipped English words. The smell of antiseptic replaces the metallic tang of fear. Hands that might have plunged a bayonet now steady a patient, not a prisoner. "You are safe now," the medic says, and the sentence lands like a stone breaking glass, an unexpected kindness that starts to unmake everything Kameda was taught to be. The medic's calm touch did something his drills could not. It confused him. He had rehearsed honor and death until it was second nature, orders that painted survival as shame and mercy as betrayal. And yet here was a stranger wiping blood from his face and saying plainly, "You are safe now." It should have been relief. Instead, it felt like betrayal, like a hand loosening a gauntlet he'd never meant to remove. Shame and longing roared behind his eyes. For the first time, a lesson he'd been taught without question showed a hairline crack, and he didn't yet know how wide it would grow. Then came the sea voyage, aboard the transport USS General John Pope, a shock that kept unfolding. These men, trained to spill blood rather than be taken, expected holds and chains. Instead, they were ferried on deck, given blankets, space to breathe, treated, bafflingly, like passengers on a liner instead of prisoners. Silence and suspicion hummed under polite smiles. Old fears didn't evaporate overnight, but the small mercies, the soft bun handed across a rail, the quiet courtesy of a young guard, began to widen a gap in what they thought they knew. It was the calm before a different kind of surprise. Better food, more care. When the mess line opens, it feels like a rumor made real. Heaped plates of hot rice and meat, steaming bowls of soup, slices of fruit, even sweet cakes that melt on the tongue. For men who'd lived on ration tins and salt and the constant ache of hunger, the portions look obscene. Hands hover. Some refuse at first, as if taking food were an admission of surrender. Others eat with a kind of guilty urgency, eyes darting as if the generosity might be a trick. Kindness becomes unfamiliar territory, beautiful, confusing, threatening. Mercy here doesn't feel like mercy. It feels like a question, and that question unsettles them all. Sergeant Teeshi Yamamoto keeps a small, worn diary hidden beneath his cot. Thin pages browned at the edges, ink smudged from sweat and hurried hands, where he records what he sees like a man tallying betrayals. He writes the dates, the generous meals, the unguarded smiles. Each entry a silent protest against a world he was raised to believe must be fought to the death. To him, the kindness is not kindness. It is a slippery thing, a threat to the discipline that gave his life shape. He is the keeper of the old ways, and every friendly gesture is another line he must cross out. Yamamoto stands slightly apart, eyes narrowed, as cigarette smoke curls between laughing American guards and the men they once shot at. The guards joke, pass smokes, clap shoulders, and the prisoners answer with hesitant smiles. Small, ordinary gestures that to anyone else would be comfort, but to him feel like contamination. He imagines discipline dissolving, honor loosening, like thread pulled from a uniform. In his mind, each shared cigarette is a rumor of surrender, each casual laugh a crack in the code he swore to uphold. He pulls his notebook closer, fingers tightening on the pen, recording these moments as warnings, proof that kindness, he believes, can be a dangerous, undermining poison. The train slides over prairie and corn, the tracks a steady drum underfoot, and the prisoners press to the windows, as if sight alone could confirm the stories that chased them across the Pacific. Men lean forward, knuckles white, scanning the horizon for proof. Bomb-blasted skylines, lines of refugees, smoke on the distant air. Silence falls in the car. Some mutter prayers, others spit curses. A few clutch photos folded into uniforms. They tally guilt for surviving and imagine the scorched faces of home. For now, they watch, eyes on the distance, hearts braced for the confirmation that the world beyond these windows has been broken. They expect to see a nation crippled by war. Instead, endless green highways unfurl, towns humming with life, factories smoking, working, not wrecked, markets piled with goods, children cycling along sidewalks. People on the platforms don't spit or glare. They glance at the packed, uniformed train, curious more than hostile, polite like strangers in a new town. The prisoners watch, mouths dry, as scenes they were taught could not exist flash by. Abundance without fanfare, order without triumphalism, everyday faces not consumed by hate. That quiet, confident normalcy becomes a kind of power they were never trained to fight, and there's no bayonet for it. When the train stops, they step down, blinking into a place that looks nothing like a prison. Camp McCoy sprawls before them, neat rows of whitewashed barracks, polished mess halls, a hospital wing, even a gym. Everything organized and well-fed under a ring of barbed wire. It is a city built for order, not spectacle, efficient, clean, unshowy. That contrast does not comfort, it confuses. For these soldiers, raised to expect torture or death, this civility feels like a trap. This will be their new battlefield, not one of trenches and guns, but of discipline, dignity, and the slow, dangerous unmaking of old loyalties. Captain Robert Daniels addressed his staff with a quiet steel that left no room for argument. These men are prisoners, yes, but first and always our responsibility. His orders were plain: obey the Geneva Convention, provide food, medical care, shelter, and humane discipline. No humiliations, no revenge. He argued it as principle and as strategy. How we treat them now shapes the peace we'll have later. Some faces in the room hardened at the notion. Years of hatred don't vanish overnight. Daniels did not ask for feelings. He demanded professionalism. Respect the men, he said. Do your duty. Hold the line between justice and brutality. On paper, it was straightforward. Captain Daniels ordered humane treatment. On the ground, for men who had been starved, beaten, and taught that living was a disgrace, that kindness landed like a blow. They arrived gaunt, haunted, fists still clenched around ghosts of orders to die with honor. A warm bowl of stew made their hands shake. A medic's gentle words, a guard's casual smile, small mercies that should have been relief, felt like accusations. Gratitude curdled into shame. To survive, in their minds, was to admit failure. What the Americans meant as care became for many a new kind of punishment, psychological torture that would split the camp. Tension snaps inside the neat rows of bunks. Sergeant Yamamoto becomes the living echo of a dying code. He paces, he lectures, he drills anyone who will listen, until their uniforms look like armor again. He points at cigarettes passed between men, at shared laughs he calls surrender. To him, comfort is corrosion. Kindness is betrayal. The older soldiers answer with stiff salutes and sharper tongues, policing each other the way officers once policed a line at dawn. It creates two camps within a camp, the solemn guardians of honor and the others, younger, bewildered, who watched kindness and felt something like shame and something like freedom. Caught between two worlds, the younger men, Kameda at their center, move like leaves in a storm, rooted to tradition, yet twitching towards something they barely understand. They bow when orders are barked. They flinch at the idea of comfort as if it were a contagion. But they also watch. They watch guards laugh over cigarettes, watch mess tins piled full, watch an American soldier straighten a wounded hand with a gentle, foreign patience. Curiosity is quieter than shame, but it grows anyway, in stolen glances, in late-night questions passed in hushed tones, in the tiny, dangerous thought that maybe, just maybe, life could feel different. Once a week, the camp becomes something else. Not a roll call, not a drill, but a little island of ordinary life. The Americans set up a makeshift screen between two tents, haul a battered projector onto a crate, and dim the harsh lights until only the flicker remains. Film spools whir. Shadows crawl across faces hardened by battle. Men shift on crates in packed earth, squinting, suspicious at first, then curious. The feature tonight is a Hollywood comedy, slapstick, visual, nearly language-free. It's an experiment in normalcy. It's a test, too. Will these men accept a moment that isn't ordered by war? On movie night, the makeshift screen flickers to life and the camp settles into a rare, tentative quiet. For Yamamoto's faction, this is sacrilege, decadent propaganda, a softening of the spine they refuse to accept. They look away, rigid, eyes burning with suspicion. But for others, the joke needs no translator. Buster Keaton's slow, precise pratfalls, the ridiculous choreography of a man and a stubborn hat, cut through years of fear like a knife through fog. The first full, unguarded laugh, sharp, surprised, ripples across the benches. It sounds almost illegal. For a moment, the war recedes, and the men remember how to be men, not ghosts. The moment that changes everything isn't a speech or a raid. It's a scrap of earth turned into a game. Americans sweep a field, chalk a diamond, pound in bases, haul out battered bats and gloves as if opening a small, noisy temple. They set a pitcher's mound, straighten a makeshift flag, and then, with a casualness that feels like a dare, they invite the prisoners to play. For a dozen men, that invitation lands like a grenade. Some look away, some want to laugh. Others grip their shirts and remember how to run. It's simple, It's absurd, and it forces every man to choose: stay a soldier or step onto the field and be something else. They don't laugh. They don't move. The invitation to play lands like an accusation. To these men, baseball isn't just a pastime. It's an emblem of the enemy, who bombed their cities and taught them to die rather than yield. Joining feels like kneeling. Picking up a bat feels like raising a white flag. Faces harden, shoulders tighten. A dozen low, stubborn refusals ripple through the dugout. The elders shake their heads, imposing silence with the old codes of honor. For a moment, the diamond stands empty, a bright, wounded altar nobody will touch, until someone who knows both worlds quietly steps forward. Enter Staff Sergeant Kenji Nakamura, a Nisei, a Japanese American in an American uniform, fluent in both languages and fluent in neither world's comfort. He's the hinge between two histories. As an interpreter, he switches tongues, but more importantly, he switches perspectives. He hears the prisoner's pride and fear in a way the guards cannot, and he feels the Americans' baffled kindness in a way the prisoners won't yet accept. He carries the weight of split loyalties, a man whose family sits behind barbed wire elsewhere in this country, and that private ache gives him an unusual authority, the kind that can turn refusal into curiosity. Kenji Nakamura stands between two worlds, an American uniform on his back, a Japanese name on his tongue, and the weight of both presses on him all the time. His family sits behind barbed wire in another camp, and every smile he offers these prisoners is a quiet argument with that truth. He hears their shame the way he hears his mother's voice. He understands their instinct to choose death over dishonor because he grew up inside the stories that made them believe it. That dual listening is his power. It makes him more than an interpreter of words. He translates fear, honor, and longing, and he feels every choice they make as if it were his own. Nakamura moves among them like a translator of gestures, not orders. A Nisei who knows both languages and both losses. He doesn't thunder commands. He lowers himself to their level, palms open, a worn glove or a small sun-faded baseball held out like an offering. His voice is calm, threaded with memory. He knows the pre-war street games, the afternoon nets, the way a crowd once cheered a perfect throw. He talks about mechanics, about honor and fair play, about rules that let skill, not rank, decide the outcome. He doesn't preach, he invites. He sets the pitch for what he's about to say next. Nakamura leans forward and speaks like someone who grew up in both worlds. Not a jailer, not a preacher, just a man offering a choice. He says baseball isn't about being American or Japanese. It's a game of clear rules anyone can learn. It's about skill, patience, and a kind of quiet dignity. You measure yourself against another man's talent, not against his uniform. You win with effort, not slogans. You accept defeat with grace and celebrate without hatred. On that dirt field, you can fight and still keep your honor. It's a bridge, he implies, and someone must step onto it. Nakamura steps closer, palms open like an offering, and says it plain. Here, on this field, you can be a team again. You can fight and you can win. The words hang in the hot air and land where sermons never could. On muscle memory, on small boys who once raced after a leather ball in a dusty yard. Faces that have known only orders and silence twitch. Shoulders relax a fraction. A laugh, half ruined but real, slips out. For a moment, the war's language, death, shame, surrender, loses its grip. Something older and quieter wakes. The hunger to compete, to belong, to be counted. His challenge opens a door. Something small and impossible cracks the silence. Kameda, young, dusty, still smelling of cave and fear, steps forward, and a few others follow. A slow, hesitant parade of men who were taught that surrender is sin. They trade short, dangerous glances. the old orders hard in their heads, curiosity softer but real in their chests. Nakamura's voice lingers, baseball as rules, as dignity, and those words land like a hand on a shoulder. Fingers curl around a battered bat, palms are slick, nods are given the weight of oaths. It takes all of them a long, breathless beat to say yes, but yes they do. The team is born, the challenge accepted. The first game is awkward and hesitant. Men who once fought for death move like sleepwalkers, stiff at the hips, clumsy with their hands, unsure where to put their weight. Bats wobble in calloused grips, throws sail either short or wild, and there are more lunges that miss than clean catches. For a few moments, it feels like a rehearsal for life, not a sport. Still, there is a small, stubborn spark. Breath catches, a grin flickers, and everyone waits for the next pitch. The American guard tossed a slow, gentle pitch, an unmistakable offering of goodwill, not a challenge. The Japanese batter stepped forward, tense and unsure, swing taught by years of something else entirely. He met the ball. The bat cracked sharp and clear, the sound slicing across the silent field. And for a heartbeat, everyone held it, wondering if that single noise could shift the weight of a man's world. Suddenly, trained reflexes kick in. Catching the ball becomes automatic, gloves snapping shut, breath hitching, then a burst of speed, feet tearing at dust toward first base. Voices rise from the dugout, quick, raw encouragement. The world narrows to leather, wood, and movement. Every muscle answers without orders. For a handful of seconds, they're not prisoners thinking of surrender, just players in the heat of play. On the dusty field, they are no longer prisoners and guards, captors and captives. They are just ball players. In the sun and the grit, rank, language, and orders peel away. What's left is the same simple geometry of the game. The arc of a pitch, the wing of a glove, the sprint toward first base. A cracked bat, a cloud of dirt, a shouted exhortation that needs no translation. These things shape them into a single team for an inning and afternoon. For the first time in months, they move by muscle memory and want, not by fear. Here, beneath the flag and beyond the wire, they are human. For a few precious hours, the world narrows to dust and sunlight, to the crack of a bat and the slap of leather in a glove. Fears that had lived in their bones, honor, shame, the orders to die, shrink into the beat of the game. Men who had thought themselves finished sprint toward first base like boys again, mouths open in laughter that sounds almost forbidden. Hands that once held rifles now steady a ball with familiar grace. The barbed wire still gleams at the edge of the field, but it might as well be a line drawn in chalk. Because for this inning, for this play, there is only the game. From the far side of the diamond, Sergeant Yamamoto stands like a judge on a hill, silhouette squared against the sun, face a mask of cold disapproval. He sees the easy laughter, the shared cigarettes, the way an American hand rests briefly on a Japanese shoulder after a good play, and in each small kindness he hears a betrayal. His jaw tightens. Years of training, the language of honor and death, all feel mocked by this casual camaraderie. He watches every play like an accusation, cataloging each smile and every handshake as evidence that his men are losing themselves, forgetting the code that gave their lives meaning. He watches, rigid, proud, every muscle trained to read defiance as duty. When the runner digs his spikes into the dust and launches himself toward home plate like it's the last stand of his life. Dirt sprays, the thud of cleats, the sharp snap of a glove as the tag lands. It's violent and precise. It's honor on display, not chaos. Around him men shout, the field hums, but Yamamoto only feels the old certainties tremble. The play should have been shame. Instead, it looks like courage. For the first time, a seed of doubt stirs in him, tiny and unbearable, and his face goes blank. The American catcher helps the Japanese player to his feet, dusting grit from a torn sleeve, then gives a quick, unexpected pat on the back, an almost casual kindness after a furious slide into home. For a beat, they both grin, breathless and ridiculous, two men who just fought over a patch of dirt and now share a private joke. Around them, the field hushes. The dugouts and even the guards pause and look. That small, unplanned act, no flags, no speeches, no cameras, says more than propaganda ever could. It returns a sliver of dignity to the player who expected only shame, and it lands like a quiet blow against everything Yamamoto has taught them. Yamamoto's face changes in a way no drill or lecture ever taught anyone to read. A quick, almost involuntary flicker, then a hard, surprised silence. The man who had spent a lifetime defining the American as the irredeemable barbarian finds that label slipping. He had expected cruelty, fury, something to punish and hate. Instead, he sees a catch, a hand extended, a laugh shared across dust and grime. The certainty that anchored him wobbles. He clenches his jaw, counts breaths, searches for the old answers, and finds none. In that thin, private rupture, the shape of his command begins to loosen. Baseball didn't stay a one-off curiosity, it took over the camp. Teams formed quickly, makeshift uniforms, nicknames grabbed from forgotten hometowns, and the diamond became the center of their days. Mornings were for practice, afternoons for scheduled games, evenings for talk that used to be impossible. Men stamped chalk lines on dusty infields, kept score on wooden crates, argued calls with the same heat they once reserved for battle. Guards and prisoners crowded the baselines, cheering, groaning, swapping cigarettes for good plays. Laughter threaded through the noise. Even the barbed wire on the perimeter couldn't keep this small, noisy normalcy from feeling, for the first time in months, like a heartbeat. This is more than recreation. It's therapy with cleats. On that dirt diamond, the men start to shed the old armor. Not all at once, not perfectly, but in small, human ways. A hesitant smile after a good throw, a laugh at a missed bunt, the way a batter steadies himself with a breath and then swings like someone who still believes his body can do something honest. They relearn rules, not as orders but as agreements. They take positions, call plays, trade nicknames. Where war taught obedience and shame, the game demands teamwork and trust. Slowly, the posture changes, the silence thins, and the camp begins to look less like a morgue and more like a community. Official camp medical reports tell a clear, almost shocking story. Cases of depression, anxiety, and malnutrition fall sharply. Men who arrived hollow-eyed and listless begin to put on weight. Wounds scab without infection. Nights without sleep turn into nights where more than one man drifts off after a game, exhausted and smiling. Baseball didn't just pass the time, it rebuilt rhythms. Regular meals, predictable rules, a reason to move and to laugh. Teamwork returned muscle memory and dignity. Conversations in the dugout became informal counseling. The field turned into a kind of clinic, and the games, in the bluntest sense, were healing them. Just as the men begin to stitch themselves back together, another truth arrives, and it is quieter and far worse than any shout. While Camp McCoy's baseball diamonds mend bodies and spirits, the radio and the occasional letter bring fragments of a different story. In 1945, the news moves like a slow, cold leak. Reports of firebombed cities, of Iwo Jima the beaches soaked in blood, of Okinawa's relentless assault. Each bulletin lands like a stone. Laughter dies mid-sentence. Guilt, anger, and helplessness roll through the dugouts. The very comforts that keep them alive suddenly feel like treachery, and the war stops being distant. The war, once an abstract duty, becomes an intimate catastrophe. News arrives in fragments, rumors first, then lists, cities smoldering, islands lost, names they know. Each bulletin tightens the camp's laughter like a wire. Men who were just learning to move past fear now freeze at every crackle from a distant transmitter, imagining who in their village still breathes. They do the terrible math in private. I am fed here, my family is starving there. Guilt sits heavier than any kit. Safety begins to feel like betrayal. Survival becomes a debt, and the only currency is the memory of what they left behind. It was a hot July afternoon, and the championship game had teeth. Dust rising off the infield, gloves snapping, breath coming hard in the dugouts. When a radio, mounted on a pole near the scorer's table, hiccuped to life. Static first, a thin electrical cough that cut through the chatter like a knife. The crackle felt wrong in the middle of a stolen base and a pitcher's stare. Players paused mid-swing, cleats dug in. Even the guards stopped talking. For a beat, the camp held its breath, every eye drifting to the small speaker, the sense of play suspended by something that sounded a lot like news. Then the radio cuts through the warm noise, an announcer's voice, clipped and steady, reading words no one here wants to hear. Massive bombing raids on Japan's major cities. Laughter dies mid-gasp. The crack of a bat sounds suddenly ridiculous. Players freeze with cleats dug in dusty dirt. Guards stop smiling. A cigarette hangs untouched between two fingers. Even the wind seems to hush. The voice lists targets and the scale of the fires. Statistics that feel impossible and intimate at once. For a long heartbeat, the diamond feels like a church. The game stops dead, and every man turns, as if they could see the smoke across the ocean. The announcer's voice still hangs in the air, and for a long beat, everything else falls away. Helmets forgotten, bats held limp, cleats dug in dust. Men who minutes ago were shouting and chasing a ball now stand motionless, eyes fixed toward the east, as if sight could cross an ocean, as if they could see the smoke and the ruined rooftops and the small shapes of homes collapsing. You can feel the field inhale. Even the laughter is gone. In that silence, the game becomes a fragile ritual of mourning, and strangers, American and Japanese, share the same sudden knowledge of how much has been lost. For a heartbeat, the diamond stops being a field and becomes a plain of shared sorrow. No uniforms, no sides, just men standing shoulder to shoulder under the same sky. The usual noise of play falls away. Cleats, chatter, the crack of the bat, all muted by a single, heavy silence. Faces that had hurled insults and ordered charges now look small and exhausted. Hands slack at their sides, eyes fixed east where the news comes from. In that stillness, an odd thing happens. Old grudges unthread. Sportsmanship turns into a kind of compassion, and the fragile truth settles in. This is not glory, but a calamity that belongs to everyone. On August 15th, the camp fell silent because they were told to be silent, an order that felt like an echo of a world they'd been taught to obey. Men shuffled to the parade ground, and a single radio, small and too ordinary, was set in front of them like an altar. Static hissed, then a voice filled the air, low, measured, unlike the proclamations they'd been fed. It was the Emperor. Hearing him speak over a foreign loudspeaker was impossible and intimate at once. The divine voice came through as a human one, and for a moment every man, American and Japanese alike, leaned forward as if the shape of their lives depended on each syllable. They were ordered to assemble. A battered radio sat on a crate at the front, its dial crackling like a distant thunder. Then a voice, cool, measured, impossibly ordinary, filled the yard, the voice of Emperor Hirohito. For many in that crowd, it was the first time they had ever heard him speak, and the words were simple and terrible. Japan would lay down its arms. The unthinkable had happened. The divine will had yielded. Time thinned. Certainties they'd carried like armor slipped away. In a single radio-borne sentence, an entire world tilted, and every man there felt in his bones that nothing would ever be the same. Everything goes quiet. The radio's distant voice, formal, impossibly calm, hangs in the air and then falls away, leaving a camp that feels unmoored. The foundation of their world crumbles. Some men drop to their knees and weep openly, shoulders shaking, tears cutting tracks through dirt-streaked faces. Some stare blankly, hands slack on batons, eyes hollow, as if someone removed the map they'd used to navigate meaning. A few whisper the Emperor's name, like a prayer and a question at once. Around the wire, guards and prisoners stand frozen in the same stunned silence, the war over, sounding less like an end than a wound that will take a long time to heal. For Sergeant Yamamoto, the announcement landed like a struck bell, clear, impossible, and impossible to ignore. He had spent years shaping men into a single iron truth: death before dishonor. He had taught ritual, silence, a readiness to meet the Emperor in sacrifice. Now the Emperor had spoken of surrender. The doctrine that gave his life meaning had cracked and spilled out. Confusion washed over him, anger at fate, shame at surviving, a hollow relief he couldn't admit. Around him, men wept or sat stunned, and Yamamoto found himself asking the question he had never allowed: what is honor when the one who defines it yields? In the hush after the announcement, the camp shifts from fortress to an uneasy anteroom of history. Barbed wire still glints, but the sharpness has dulled. Men move about like travelers between lives, counting days and letters, folding uniforms into neat piles they never imagined they'd keep. Repatriation orders arrive in late 1945, and with them a strange, heavy itinerary. Trains, ships, paperwork, the final small rituals of leaving. Some cling to baseball caps and makeshift mementos. Others sit silent, staring east. Friendships hold fast as schedules harden. Hope and dread travel together now, tethered to a single uncertain shore. Private Kameda sits on a wooden crate by the fence and unties a frayed pencil case as if it were a ritual. He breathes once, then twice, and begins to write. Japanese characters, slow and deliberate. Each stroke a small, clumsy reconciliation between what he was taught to be and what he has come to feel. He traces the names of men who laughed with him, the cracked bats, the taste of clean water, the nights when kindness felt like an accusation. He apologizes in ink, not with grand words, but with honest ones: shame, gratitude, and a question about who he might become. When he folds the paper, it is light and not empty. When the time comes, Kameda seeks the American who'd stood across from him on the diamond. He finds the guard where they'd always met, near the dugout, hands sun-scarred and steady. Kameda's palms are clammy. He offers the paper without ceremony. Nakamura crouches, reads aloud in measured English. I have learned that enemies can become friends. The words hang between them. The guard's face shifts. Surprise, then something softer, like recognition. No big speeches, just a slow nod. In that small exchange, the distance they had been taught to keep collapses, and Kameda feels, for the first time, the true meaning of what he'd written. Kameda's last line hangs in the air like a promise. Baseball and laughter are the same in any language. Nakamura speaks the words aloud, and the American who once threw him gentle pitches takes them in, slow. A nod, a breath, a smile that doesn't need translation. For a beat, there is silence. Then the guard reaches out, half awkward, half sure, and clasps Kameda's hand as if sealing a small peace treaty. It's nothing grand, no speeches, just two men who had met across a divide and found a simple truth. On a field or in a laugh, humility is louder than orders. They boarded the trains under a cold morning sky, trunks and journals and a few battered gloves tucked under arms. Platforms hummed, engines clicked, guards and players lingering with no awkwardness, only a weight you felt in your throat. Men who had once aimed rifles now clasped hands, exchanged hesitations for small, stubborn grins, swapped letters and cigarette packets, and the kind of silence that meant thank you. Kameda stood by a window and watched faces he had come to know. Not enemies, but teammates of a strange season. As the whistle blew, the cars pulled away, carrying men remade by a game, by mercy, by laughter. They come back changed, physically the same, but hollowed and rebuilt. The stiff shoulders, the way they hold a bowl, the quiet in a crowded room, everything altered. Some wear the memory of Camp McCoy like a secret badge, an awkward laugh at a joke in broken English, a scar that's been bandaged with kindness. Others carry guilt. Survival felt like betrayal. Mercy felt like weakness until it mended them. They know how to play and how to forgive, and those small, hard-won skills sit beside grief. Home is ruins and hunger, but also a new language of play and mercy that won't be forgotten. They step off the boats, and the world they knew is gone. Streets reduced to rubble, rooftops blown away, smoke still tasting in the air, and faces they recognize hollowed by hunger. Children cling to tattered clothes. Parents move like shadows, astonished that their men have returned. For a moment, all the lessons of war, honor, duty, shame, collide with a simpler, crueler fact. The home that trained them to choose death over surrender now needs their mercy to survive. The neat, well-fed days at Camp McCoy feel unreal, a distant dream that both comforts and torments them as they try to find the next step. They came home carrying two truths that didn't fit together: memories of strangers who had fed them and laughed with them, and the ruin of cities that had once been everything. Guilt arrived first, a heavy, private thing, because survival felt like betrayal when families were starving. Then came a quieter, harder question. What did honor mean now, after orders had ended and emperors had spoken? Was strength still measured in sacrifice, or in the stubborn, ordinary work of rebuilding lives? Those questions didn't have tidy answers. Instead, the men held small, stubborn gestures, a shared joke, a baseball tucked under an arm, and began to invent a different kind of courage, one that looked a lot like mercy. The sight is almost absurd. Amid the ruins and ash of bombed-out neighborhoods, men who once trained for death kneel to notch shoelaces, show a child how to grip a bat, or cup a hand around a worn leather ball. They chalk a baseline on cracked concrete and teach the rules with patient, exacting voices. No commands from an emperor, just the rhythm of practice, the polite call of "play ball." These former prisoners move carefully, their faces still carrying the weight of loss, but their hands remember technique and tenderness. In teaching baseball, they hand the next generation a simple, stubborn hope that life can be rebuilt one inning at a time. In the rubble of post-war neighborhoods, the game took root because men who had been prisoners taught it to children: how to grip a bat, how to track a fly ball, how to argue a close call and laugh about it afterward. What had once felt like betrayal became practical kindness. Stones for bases, patched gloves, makeshift diamonds where kids chased something brighter than hunger. Baseball stopped being the enemy's game and turned into a bridge between grief and routine, between fathers and sons, between a defeated country and a stubborn hope. By 1950, stadiums were filling again, professional leagues pulsing with life, and the simple lessons learned behind barbed wire helped stitch a broken society back together. What began as a kindness on a dusty diamond turned into something larger than either side could have planned. Men who arrived broken by war learned to stand again, not as soldiers, but as teammates, teaching kids in ruined neighborhoods how to throw, to catch, to laugh. By the time professional leagues rose in the 1950s, that quiet, stubborn exchange had seeded a new culture. Baseball as balm, as classroom, as bridge. The lesson was simple and hard. Mercy is not weakness, it is strength. Under every uniform there was a human face, and sometimes the truest victory comes on a field where everyone plays by the same rules.